7 p.m. All right, welcome everyone. This is the Clear Admit MBA Application Overview webinar series. I'm really excited. We have 5 amazing business schools with us today. We're going to cover a number of aspects of the MBA application process. And this is actually our first event of the 25-26 application season. So it's exciting to kind of get started. New year kind of rolling around here. Let's make some intros before we dive into our discussion today. My name is Graham, and I am your moderator. I'm the co-founder of Clear Admit. That's all you really need to know about me. I do want to mention that we're going to talk with our panelists today, and then each of them has been kind enough to promise to stick around and jump into a little Zoom breakout at the end. So they will take your questions at the end of the session. As a result, as we're doing the main discussion here, we won't really be doing any Q&A. But let's get on and actually introduce our panelists. So first up, we have Megan Creeden, who is an associate director for admissions yield over at the Tuck School of Business at Dartmouth. Hi, Megan.
Juan, really excited to be with you today.
Yeah, it's great to have you. Next up, we're also going to hear today from Morgan Griffin. She's an associate director over at Duke's Fuqua School of Business. Hi, Morgan.
Hi, Graham. Thanks for having me. I'm looking forward to chatting with everyone.
Yeah, same. We're also going to hear today from Segen Berhe, who is the Assistant Director of Marketing and Recruitment for MBA and MIM. And I guess you cover Middle East and Africa and the UK. So you got a lot of different regions, but welcome, Segen. It's great to have you.
Thank you. Thank you, Graham, and looking forward to this event.
Same. We're also going to hear today from David Simpson, who's the Admissions Director for the MBA and Masters in Finance programs at London Business School. Hi, David.
Hi, Graham. Hi, everybody. Great to be here. Thanks for inviting us.
And last but not least, we have Andrea McHale, who's the Director for Full-Time MBA and Global MBA Admissions at Michigan Ross. Hi, Andrea.
Hi, Graham. Thank you so much for letting me be part of this today. It is the official kickoff of my first webinar for this new recruitment season, and really thrilled to be with esteemed panelists and be sharing out to all of our future prospective students.
Yeah, this is great. I guess we're very early. And what I love about these sessions is that if you're on this panel, you are so far ahead of the game because you're already thinking about all the right things. So I love these sessions because it just, we're getting to share information with a group of prospects who are out in front with respect to their MBA application process. Let's dive right in though. What we're going to start with is I wanted to just go around the panel here and find out kind of in brief here, but what you identify as your MBA program's core values. And then to the extent that you can, just tell us like, how do those values inform the way you think about admissions in your admissions team? So let's go alphabetically. We'll start with Megan at Tuck. What are the core values at Tuck, and yeah, how do they shape the admissions process?
Yeah, absolutely. Thanks for the question, Graham. I'll start with our mission statement at Tuck Dartmouth, which is Tuck develops wise, decisive leaders who better the world through business. And I bring that up because we changed that a few years ago to read the world of business to the world through business. And I think that's a really important change, recognizing that folks are coming from all different industries. They're going into all different types of kind of paths post MBA. So we get the question a lot, I'm a non-traditional applicant. What does that mean for me in the process? There's no such thing as a non-traditional applicant. I think we would all sort of echo that on the panel. Tuck, we really think about ourselves as being a very personal, connected, transformative program. And the way that sort of distills down into our admissions process is in the form of our 4 admissions criteria, which are smart, accomplished, aware, and encouraging. Certainly we're looking for folks who are ready to do the academic work here and bring their intellectual curiosity. We're looking for folks who have accomplishments coming into the program, whether they're personal, professional, but we're also looking for people who are ready to build community, to show up as empathetic, collaborative kind of contributors. We're looking for folks who have done the introspection around why this is the right path for them and how they want to use the Tuck MBA. So that really connects back to that kind of connected and transformative piece. Happy to say more when we chat about the application process and where that all maps to, but that's sort of the highlight, the overview of sort of how we think about that.
Okay, excellent. Appreciate it. So let's turn now to Morgan. Morgan, same question for you. What are the core values at Fuqua, and yeah, how do they shape the admissions process?
Yeah, I think a lot of times when people start researching about Fuqua, they come across this term, Team Fuqua, and initially they might think, well, we just really love basketball, and we do. But Team Fuqua really does represent our core values and what we believe. So we really believe in building a collaborative environment, those who exhibit supportive ambition, and believe that there's success in we, not I. And I think that really informs our admissions process as well, because those are the types of people we're looking for. I think, as you probably go through this panel, you'll hear a little bit about this, but it doesn't always come down to a three-digit number and a test score or something. We want people who really do believe in these things, who are going to come here and really contribute, bring their diversity of experiences and personal beliefs, and expertise, and really help to shape the class, and support one another. Business school isn't always about who's getting to the top, but it's about how do we cross that finish line, together to make a difference in the world through business. And so, I definitely think, we're looking for that through the application and all kind of different components and things. And I could spend a whole hour just talking about that. But I think also, realizing that here at Fuqua, that's not just something we want for our students. It's something that we truly believe in, through staff and faculty and leadership. So even in the admissions committee, a lot of times we are working together to help, prospective students, research and learn more about Fuqua, or connect with, various members of our community, or attend events. We are really excited when we get to admit people. We're always looking for every reason to admit somebody. We're not looking to ding you in the application process. And so I think that's something that we also just kind of live and breathe as we're also reviewing applications. Because if you're living and breathing it, those are the types of people you're going to cultivate into your program.
Got it. All right. That's excellent. Segen, I want to turn to you at INSEAD. What are some of the core values at INSEAD, and how do those shape the way your team thinks about admissions?
Sure. Thank you for that, Graham. I think, as prospective students, it's really important to consider the mission and the value of the schools you're considering, and more importantly, if those actually align with what you're trying to do in life, right? At INSEAD, our core values revolve around diversity, academic excellence, and using business as a force of good. INSEAD has always been a mission-driven institution. It was founded in 1957. Now, keep in mind that this was post-World War II, right? A time when the world was still recovering from the war, countries and people were divided by their political ideologies. And our founder, DeRoyd, envisioned a business school that would help bring European countries together, and that would help instill peace and prosperity, right, through business. So when we are looking at applications, we're looking to understand the applicant's mission and how INSEAD will play a role in helping them achieve this mission. Are they interested in learning and interacting with students that may think differently from them? Because at INSEAD, if you look around, everyone is a minority. We don't have a dominant culture per se. We're looking to see if the applicants are interested in being academically challenged. Are they interested in going to different campuses and experiencing a global culture? So those are the kind of stories our admissions team are looking at when we're looking at applications, really.
Understood. Yeah, it's this is really interesting to hear each of you talk through this. Just because every school has its own character and personality and values, and I think, candidates have this tendency to sometimes, just look at rankings or lump things together, and it pays dividends to learn and listen to what these schools are saying, and ideally, it shapes the way you apply. Let's turn to David at London Business School. Yeah, what are the values at LBS, and how do they shape the way you think about admissions?
Thanks, Graham. So at London Business School, we want to have an impact on the way the world does business and the way that business impacts the world. So your place in the world and how you can, make it a better place over the rest of your career. Um, and I think in terms of how we translate that into the way we're assessing, a lot of it's about potential. So, but the core sort of areas for me are about being open-minded, being globally minded. And that doesn't mean having international experience necessarily. It means being interested in people, being interested in what's going on everywhere and how that can impact you in your future. So we've got a pretty eclectic bunch of people from so many different places around the world coming in to join us in London, which has a certain energy and vitality to it. So a lot of it is about fit, and that's a usual word a lot. I'm sure we'll talk about it later, but it's about what we're looking for versus what you can bring and what you're looking for. And does that go together? Do those words like globally minded, being open-minded and collaborating, um, ring true with you? Do they sound like things that you want to focus on through your education and through your studies?
Okay, terrific. Let's turn to Andrea at Michigan. Ross, what about you?
Yeah, I think three core values come to mind. One being community. We really strive to have an active participant class in each MBA program that we bring together. We have an extensive student club organization list. We have centers and institutes that are very much part of your student experience. And then the second thing is action-based learning. That is our primary pedagogy, our mode of curriculum instruction, and that's learning by doing. So I brought in the centers and institutes through your classes, and then of course our capstone experience, which is your multidisciplinary action project. If you thrive in an environment where you learn that modality by doing real world projects, that is part of our core values. And the final one is inclusive leadership. We really strive to make an impact in not just business, but in society. And so that is a foundation of who we are as an institution. And these values absolutely shape the way that we, one, create our application and review our applicants. So a way to stand out within that in those core values is oftentimes through your essays, your evaluative interviews, and we're always trying to refine and craft those questions that we're asking to make sure that we understand you as applicants and that there is a mutual fit.
Okay. Yeah, this is terrific. I feel like I've learned a little bit about each of these programs listening to you guys talk through this. Let's move on to the next segment, which is we're going to talk a little bit about the application components. And I have a slide here that just sort of goes over a lot of the basics, and I recognize that each school is slightly different, but in most instances, these are the things that you're going to need to prepare. There's a form to fill out, there's a fee to pay, although some schools have waivers on the fees. You need to provide, evidence of your academic performance from university. In some cases, a standardized test, although some schools allow for waivers, resume, essays, all the things you see on screen here. But we're going to get into this on a school by school basis because I think each of our panelists and programs here have their own way of doing admissions and some kind of interesting, I wouldn't say quirks, but just unique aspects of their process. So let's start again. We'll just go through the alphabet here. And what I want to do here is basically we'll start with Megan at Tuck, and as I said, like at a high level, the requirements when you're applying to these schools look pretty similar. But what should candidates know about Tuck's application in particular? Like, what's something that's different about it? And we have a slide here, I believe, with your kind of requirements specifically, right? So, is there something on here that you want to speak to or just shed some light on for our audience?
Absolutely. So the first thing I would say is that all of these components of the application map to one of our admissions criteria. Again, that's smart, aware, accomplished, and encouraging. So when we think about SMART, for example, that's things like your transcripts and your test scores. We think about accomplished. It's going to be your resume, your letters of recommendation. It's also going to show up in your interview. We think about, aware and encouraging. Those really show up again in that interview where you sort of have some space to elaborate on your story and really kind of share some additional information with your interviewer. It's also going to show up in your essays, which others have highlighted. I think that tends to be admissions' favorite part of your application, but those really drill in on those two admissions criteria. A couple kind of tactical things to highlight. So we have 3 admissions rounds at Tuck. We also have an early interview opportunity. So if you apply in round 1 and round 2 by an earlier date, you guarantee yourself the opportunity to have an interview, which means you'll have your interview and then it makes its way to admissions. If you apply after that date, we'll review it, and then interviews are by invitation only. So keep an eye on our dates. We'll be updating those this summer. All of our interviews at Tuck are conducted by second-year students. So it's a great way not only to share your story, but also to continue to get to know Tuck. Final thing I'll highlight is we do have some waivers. So we have a fee waiver that's available to students. We also have a test waiver option. You do need to get those in at least 12 business days before the application deadline. So again, keep an eye on deadlines and really think about if the test waiver in particular is right for you. And I'll share some additional context maybe later in the conversation on that. But please keep an eye on the website. Again, we're in the process of updating. I'll also quickly highlight our Tuck 360 blog, which is a great resource that we'll be updating throughout the summer as well.
Okay. Yeah. So the deadlines, I'm assuming sometime in May or June, we might learn what those deadlines are.
Yep. So early June, we're aiming to have all of
You're
those
working on
out
it.
to everyone. We expect they'll be pretty similar to this past year. So if you're trying to get a general sense, feel free to peek at the website as it is now.
Okay, terrific. All right, let's turn our attention to Duke, Fuqua, and Morgan. Morgan, the same assignment here. Is there something about the process at Fuqua that you want us to know about, something that's unique, et cetera?
Yeah, so kind of like Megan mentioned, and you'll probably hear, very similar. We have the required tests. We don't have any waiver options. Probably the first thing that jumps out on this list, if I'm looking at it, that is kind of unique to us is our essay. So if you haven't had a chance to look at our application yet, one of our essay questions is we want to know 25 random things about you. And it throws people off every year. We get questions of like, okay, well, what are you really wanting to know here? What's the secret? How do I have to structure this? And it is as open-ended as you read that. It is 25 random things about yourself. Now, we don't want 25 objects, but what are 25 things that have maybe shaped you into who you are today, that have been impactful in your life, things that you enjoy? Things that you're passionate about. Was there a favorite trip you took? That's what we're really wanting to learn about. This started as a way for us to, we used to do this and we still do actually, in our admissions office when new people join our team. It was a great way for us to kind of get to know everyone quickly. So people, when they start here, they write a random list of 25 things and they send it out to the staff, and it's a way to form connections and community. And so we really felt like, what better way if we're learning about our staff members and colleagues, a great way to learn about our applicants. So that's how that morphed. So people have a lot of fun with it. It's, as Megan mentioned, essays are usually the thing we look forward to reading the most in your application, because it's really where we get to learn about you and your personality, and not just the surface things of a test score or where you work. Another question we have in our application is we have a lived experience question. It is completely optional, but it is a question where you can provide, is there something that's part of your lived experience that has shaped you into who you are today? So some people decide to talk about how maybe they're the first in their family that went to college, and applying to business school is now kind of another step of the first in their family. Or maybe people had a wonderful experience that they want to share that has shaped them, or maybe something happened in their life that is shaping them into what they want to study at business school. Anything is possible, but we felt like this was another way for us just to learn about people that, maybe we don't get to learn about that through a test score or an essay, for you to talk about that experience. So we do have that as well. And probably the third thing that I would say is unique about our application is we have an early action round, which is a binding decision round. It's usually that deadline. We haven't released our dates yet, kind of like Megan. We're releasing our dates, I'd say probably in June. They might come out a little bit sooner. But early action is typically beginning of September, usually the first or second week. It is a binding decision round, but a great round for people that have said, hey, I want to come to Duke. I've done my research. I'm ready. All my components are ready. I just need to hit submit. And what's nice about that is you can apply and you get your admissions decision probably relatively early in the admissions cycle. And that gives you time to start accessing some of our career resources, getting to know your classmates, and preparing and enjoy, the holidays and all those things. So that is something that's really unique about early action with our program. And then we do have 4 other rounds of admission as well. But those are just some interesting things about our application. But we are really passionate about the 25 things essay question.
All right. So if you're tuning in, you're thinking of applying to Fuqua, you should, maybe start thinking about what might comprise that list of 25 things. I love that you guys use that in the office when people join the team too. That's really cool. Let's turn our attention now to Segen at INSEAD. Same assignment. Segen, just take us through something or a couple of things that you think are interesting about the INSEAD process.
Yeah. Thank you. So I'd like to start with, the four criteria we kind of look at when we're assessing applications. One is academic capacity, two, your leadership potential, your ability to contribute, and global exposure. So academic capacity, meaning your GMAT, GRE, which is mandatory for INSEAD, along with where you've completed your bachelor's degree, what program, all those components fit into the academic capacity, right? With GMAT, GRE, you choose a test that best suits you. We accept both. Take your time in preparing for these tests, and we're not looking for we have a specific scoreline, but we look at it in combination with your bachelor's degree. So no worries, just give it your best shot and go from there. The other elements, leadership potential, it's potential, not experience. So if you do not have managerial experience, that's fine. It's a potential that we're looking at. Ability to contribute is your story. So beyond your academics, beyond your work experience, what is it that you're bringing into the classroom that would be interesting? If we put you in a class that's quite diverse, and you're having a coffee chat, what is interesting about your life story that you can bring about? We look at these factors. And lastly, and this might be different from other schools, global exposure, right? As I mentioned earlier, INSEAD is quite diverse. You have about 70 plus nationalities in there. So we would want to know, if we put you in such a dynamic environment, do you have the cultural ability to be able to interact and with people that are different from you? So with that, you start your online application, and I would recommend just starting it a bit early so you have the time to reflect. Some of the best read applications are those where you can see that the student had taken their time to sit and reflect on why INSEAD, why the MBA, and that comes across clearly. After you submit your online application, you make it through the first stage, you are invited to 2 interviews with alums. Our alums are the gatekeepers. So the interviews can vary from an office interview, a coffee chat. So it really depends. What they want to know is, if you were to get accepted to INSEAD, how would they feel having you as a classmate or as a partner, right? We do require English exams if you haven't completed your bachelor's in English, but if you have completed your bachelor's in English, then you don't need one. One thing I forgot to mention is, once you submit your online application, you get a link for your video interviews, your career interviews. This is an opportunity for the admissions team to really put a face to the application. So across all elements of the application, one advice I usually give our candidates is just be as candid as possible, right? Be clear on your why, be clear on INSEAD. There's no right or wrong answer. If INSEAD is asking for diversity, there's no one specific great application. So keep that in mind when you're applying. So it's not a question of how should I show up as being a great applicant, but rather how can I show up being true to myself, while being clear on how INSEAD is going to help me in this journey. Yeah, so I think I'll stop here and move on.
Okay. Yeah, no, excellent. Appreciate you shedding light on all that. I see we're getting some questions in the chat, and I just want to remind everyone, at the end of the main session here, Segen and all of our panelists are going to break out into little Zoom breakouts, so you can go and ask your INSEAD specific questions or Fuqua, Tuck, LBS, and Ross questions at that time. Let's move on and hear from David at London Business School. Again, David, we've got a slide here with the key components of your application. Is there something you want to kind of highlight for us in particular?
Yeah, sure. So you'll see a lot of the same common ground in there in terms of what we're looking for. We are looking for the standardized test so that we can compare people from all around the world. And so it's a great leveler for us, but we're quite flexible in terms of scoring. We look at the holistic view of your academic ability. Basically, we want to make sure that you can get through the tough stuff, especially those core courses. So whatever it takes to prove that point, make it clear that you'll be okay and you'll thrive, it's good. But yeah, I suppose really for us, for me, the most important thing is the interview, also an alumni interview. We're using alumni because they have good local knowledge and they're able to talk about what you've done with a localized perspective. So when they're helping to educate us in the admissions committee about someone's work, even if it's with a global firm, there might be local nuances. So we're usually matching our alumni by location, and often by industry as well. So that alumni matching that goes on helps to give us this super focused view on someone. Now, it's not all about alumni with the admissions committee reviewing everything in the application, and sometimes we do follow-up interviews. So it could be me if you're really unlucky, or other senior members of the admissions committee. I've just done 3 today, which was great, but it's quite exhausting because it's a very thorough job, and giving people that opportunity to tell their story. The other things I'd say in terms of the essays, traditionally our essays have been focused on a very practical, pragmatic, career-focused question. But last year we added another one just to twist it up a little bit to ask what makes you unique. And that is more simple than perhaps it sounds in terms of creativity. And the instruction we give is just, don't overthink it. Just tell us your story. A lot of this stuff in MBA applications is about potential, right? So it's about career potential. It's about your potential for societal impact, what you can do in the future, and how we can help you get there. So all of admissions is geared around to tell your story, and help us to understand you and see what you might be doing in the future.
Got it. Yeah, appreciate you going through that. I was kind of wondering how that went because was that the first year that you had that question? That what make yeah. So you've been
Hey,
reading them. How did you're keeping? Are you think you're going to keep it, or I know you haven't announced your essays for next year yet, but
we haven't. We'll keep you on the toes. We'll tell you
all
another
right.
clear admit event, but probably we're enjoying it. It's not too consuming, and most importantly, candidates seem to be relatively okay with it. It's not getting anybody too confused or too worried.
Got it. All right. Sorry to put you on the spot. Let's turn to Andrea at Michigan. Ross, same thing here, Andrea. We have your kind of components on screen, and yeah, take us through something you want to shed light on.
Wonderful. Thank you. So sorry, I had a little icon pop up. So for just like all of the other programs, we're looking for academic readiness, cultural fit, employment fit. We want to make sure that you can succeed with the goals that you have here at Ross. So in terms of the application, a couple things to mention. We have had 3 required essays in our last cycle. I anticipate that that is going to be reduced to 2 required essays. What we were finding in last year's, we had one around action-based learning and one around your short-term career goals. And a lot of the drivers for why Ross were becoming redundant within the 2. So we're going to be combining those 2 applications. And then we do still want to understand how you are going to make an impact, and we'll have the selections. So we have multiple prompts that you can choose from in that essay. In terms of standardized tests, we will continue to accept the GMAT and the GRE, both the traditional GMAT, the new GMAT test format. I anticipate that we'll also be accepting the executive assessment. And one thing around the waivers, it's not a waiver, but we do require, if you're applying without a standardized test, to have a statement of academic readiness. And we are refocusing that essay prompt around that statement to be a statement of quantitative academic readiness. So really refocusing the way that you're approaching a request without a standardized test and submitting an application to focus on your quantitative readiness. We will continue to require 1 letter of recommendation. In terms of the language proficiency exam, we will continue to offer all of the options that we have, plus now the DET through Duolingo. So when that application goes live, hopefully next month in about 6 weeks or so, you'll see that option as well. And then by invitation, we request an interview. couple things to think about. This application should be a very reflective process that you're going through. It is a very useful tool to get you ready to be just highly productive in your MBA experience. So really think through what we're asking for. You really get to the one, those core values, two, what the university and the program stands for through this application process, and you'll identify if you fit within that culture of the programs that you're applying to.
Got it. Yeah, this is great. And I appreciate the scoop on some of these
I
potential
know. I was like, I
changes
like
that are
that this is in
forthcoming.
May because we're just finalizing all of this.
Yeah, no, it's way early. I appreciate you kind of taking us through what you guys are thinking about. All right, so now we're going to get into the fun stuff. This next set of questions that we have are questions from folks in the applicant pool, and so we basically just went through these and cleaned up, the language and tried to kind of come up with a set of questions for everyone that would work. So the first question, oh, I see our notes from the last slide carried over to the next slide, but it's okay. Everyone can still read this. So what we're going to do with the first question is I'm going to turn to Megan at Tuck, and I want to ask you about the GMAT and the GRE. I mean, these are kind of different tests. Most, if not all, schools now take both, and some of you also allow for waivers. But what would you say to an applicant who's trying to decide, which to take, and like, how does your team look at the scores on these two exams?
Yeah, absolutely. I hope folks got the sense from sort of the walkthrough of our application processes that truly there's no preference for either exam. I don't think any of the schools on screen or really any school that I know of, you should take whichever test suits you better. I always like to encourage folks, before you really invest a lot of time, resources, energy, take a practice test for both exams and kind of see how they feel. I think the way the questions flow and the format of the tests are quite different. And some folks just gravitate towards one or the other. So try both. In general, I think we are kind of encouraging you to give yourself time to study, time to take the test more than once potentially. If you're pursuing a waiver option at any of our schools, time to get that kind of application in if needed. So just prepare ahead of time and kind of think through the steps needed to really be successful and represent your abilities on these exams. Also check with your schools about how they think about each of these exams. At Tuck, for example, we don't super score your exam. We're sort of interested in your total highest score. And we encourage you to submit all of your scores. We want to see that hard work that you've put into this process. We want to reward you for upward trends and improving on those scores. Sometimes we give waitlist feedback that your application could be strengthened by trying the exam again. I won't give you that application feedback if I know that you've taken the exam multiple times, right? So provide that info to us is really helpful. It sounds like most folks on screen aren't offering waivers, but again, on the waiver piece, think carefully about if you want to pursue the test waiver. So at Tuck, for example, if you are approved for that test waiver, which is a pretty high bar in terms of, needing to see other sort of quantitative data points on your academic record, you are giving us one less data point to consider in terms of admitting you and in terms of awarding scholarship. So really think carefully about whether or not a waiver option is right for you. The last thing I'll say in terms of kind of how we think about these exams, this is one piece of your application, right? So if I'm maybe not seeing academic readiness on your test scores, I'm going to your transcripts and looking at the past coursework you've completed. I'm looking at the type of work experience you have. So I think multiple folks brought this up as we were doing the application walkthrough. These are important, right? They are an indicator that we certainly use and are kind of a universal metric in some ways, but it is one piece of your overall application. So make sure you're also focusing in on those other components.
Yeah, wow. Lots of amazing advice, Megan. I think, the MBA application is kind of this like multivariable equation with all these pieces that kind of come together. So it's not, just a test score that's going to determine how things go. The best piece of advice, I mean, you gave a lot of really great advice, but the best piece of advice that I heard, given where we are in the calendar, is plan to maybe take one of these tests twice. I think people often underestimate that. It takes time to prep. People take it and they're not happy with their score and they often decide to take it again. And I think if you budget for that time from the get-go, you're just going to be so much better served. And fortunately, here we are in May. you have the time. You could take this test twice before having to get your applications in the fall. So everyone just keep that in mind. It's not, people get better at these tests by taking them more than once. It's not like an IQ test. Really, you can practice and get better. So budget the time for it. Also, great thoughts on the waiver stuff too. I know we're kind of got to be mindful of the clock here, so I want to turn to Morgan with our next question. Morgan at Fuqua. So we all know that work experience is a key aspect of one's MBA candidacy, but what do you look for when you evaluate somebody's professional history?
Yeah, so when we're looking at work experience, and the reason why we say, we like in general for people to have some work experience is just because that way when you're sitting in the classroom and you're, looking at a case study or part of a discussion, you're able to pull from your experience of professional work of how did you do things when you were a consultant or working in energy or working in finance, those types of things. And so when we're looking at your work experience, schools, they might look at things differently of, resume format or what do they consider. But in general, are more looking for what has your impact been. And so your resume is really valuable real estate in your application. It's not something you should just say, oh, let me just dust off this resume from when I applied for my job. This will work. Typically, the resume that you have used to apply for your current job will not be the resume you want to use for applying to business school because your resume is probably more going to talk about what are your daily responsibilities or tasks that you do within your job. An MBA application resume should more be highlighting ways that you've managed people, projects, budgets, and really be a snapshot of your achievements in the workplace and in that role. So putting in, quantifiable things is great, but more talking about what has your impact been. Someone could, consultants, we can look and they can have the exact same job, but if someone's just like, I was tasked with doing this, with doing this, with doing this. Well, what was your achievement with those tasks? That resume would probably stand out a lot more to me than somebody that just rattled off all of their daily responsibilities. And so we are looking for, the great thing about business school is you are usually going to be in a class of people who are vastly different from you. You're not going to usually be in a class of all people from consulting. You're going to have people that have business experience, don't have any business experience. We've had people in our program that were, NFL players or professional, we had a professional ballerina dancer, all the things that didn't come from any consulting background or anything. And so we want people that come from different work experience, industries, functions, just because that's really what's going to enrich the program. An MBA program is making you a global business leader, and you're going to be interacting with people from different industries and functions. And so we want people to have that experience here to learn from those different perspectives. So after graduation, when they're in those roles, they kind of know like, how do we work together? How do we, bring all these people that have different skills to solve a problem or work on something? So really, when we're looking at it, those are the things we're looking at. We're looking at people with diverse professional experience, but looking at what have their big accomplishments been. And I always hammer this home. Really, take some time and think of how you manage people, projects, and budgets. That can be really helpful in guiding what are those bullet points you put under all the different roles you've had in your life.
Okay. Yeah. Super helpful. Yeah. And to the extent that you kind of quantify what you've done, the number, like you're saying, number of people, size of the budget, et cetera. Yeah, those are really great insights. I think, work experience, as you also point out, it just comes in so many flavors. And that's one of the great things about the MBA is that people from all kind of different backgrounds are coming together to study. And so you don't have to have worked at a bank or in a consulting firm, which is what's amazing about it. All right, let's move on. We have a question now for Segen at INSEAD, and this is about letters of recommendation. So, what makes for a great letter? You probably have read a bunch of these over the years. What makes them stand out?
Mm-hmm. Good question. Your recommendation is probably the most important element. No, I cannot say the most, but it's quite important because you are choosing someone else to speak on your behalf. So the advice here is choose wisely. Choose someone that you've worked with closely, that knows you, that can speak to your capabilities as of, who you are today. Not someone that's known you, 2 years ago, because as far as they're concerned, they knew your skill set then. And you've lost 2 years of good reference that can be used, right? So pick someone that you are in touch with. So this could be a mentor, for example. So even though you might not be working with them, they're your ex-manager, but you've kept in touch with them. They've been advising you on your career moves. This would make a good reference. Your current manager would make a good reference. If you're not letting your employer know that you're not you're applying for an MBA, then you can use someone as a someone that works closely. So not directly through the company, maybe a client, someone from any community work that you do. With INSEAD, you need 2 recommendation letters. Some schools need 1. So this is your opportunity to really have someone else speak on your behalf. Give them notice. Don't just put their name and they receive this email or this letter that they have to complete. So sit them down, let them know why you're applying to this particular school and what you would like them to mention, because your application is your canvas, right? So you're going to speak about specific skills, specific achievements in different parts of your application, and you don't want your references to repeat the same story. So kind of manage, their expectations. You know yourself best, so kind of sit them down and say, okay, I would appreciate if you can talk about this story, that story, whatever it is that you would like them to share. So yes, give them time. And when you start your application, I don't know how it is with the different schools, but with INSEAD, you can go ahead to the recommendation tab and put in their email address and they receive the letter. So do that early on, so they have a month, 2 months to complete your application. Some of the good ones we've read are those that you feel that it's structured and it goes well with the rest of the application. Try not to use family. They don't usually make the best references. Yeah.
Okay. Wow. Yeah, there's a lot of good advice there too. I think that a dean of admissions at a top business school once said to me that the recommendations process is also like a management test. And you were kind of hinting at this. It's like, how good is the candidate at selecting the right kind of person and then managing that person through the process to deliver a recommendation that's high quality and on time? Because sometimes recommenders get it in late, and that's, nobody's fault but the applicant if you're not, on top of them. So in any event, yeah, lots of good advice there. And I think also this issue around, no family, it's something that comes up a lot. I do want to remind our audience, there are a lot of questions popping up in the chat below. And I just want to remind everyone, in a couple of minutes here, we're going to break out into individual breakouts. So you can ask those questions of the individual panelists when we get there. But for the time being, we're going to forge ahead. We have another question, and this one is for David at LBS. And David, you must have seen this in advance because you alluded to talking about fit later in our conversation. And here it is, a question about fit. So we hear a lot about this like elusive thing, fit, admissions officers trying to figure out whether you fit with their program. So tell me a little bit about what that looks like for you. How do you assess it?
Great, thanks, Graham. Yeah, I, I think there's a lot written about organizational fit, but I think when you're talking about putting together a cohort of students who you expect to collaborate effectively and bring and share ideas so that the sum is greater than the parts, et cetera, is fit is absolutely essential. And fit can be defined as alignment and compatibility with an organization. I think for us, and I think for most schools, it's about matching of values, purpose, potential contributions, and or just potential overall, really. So it feels a bit fluffy and light, but actually it's about getting all the attributes in an application, all the things we ask for, and seeing whether they match up with what our expectations. And a lot is about that diversity within a class. You'll think there's a shared sense of purpose that people might have, but actually personality types, work experience, nationalities, everything can be extremely diverse. And I think the best schools get people together and have very open discourse, and they're open to discussion, um, push past boundaries in terms of, making sure there's a safe environment, but making sure everybody can learn from everybody, being honest and bringing those different perspectives. Um, how do we assess it? I mean, that's a big question, isn't it? I think everything the application does at some extent. Essays give a little bit of a taste, a bit of an introduction, but really, I think it's all about the interviews and what we can learn from the interviews, because that's when you can go above and beyond the application, which is a very well polished piece of preparation, whereas you in person is a conversation. Whoever you're talking to, whether it's alumni, senior staff, students, whoever different schools use, fit will become a part of it. And I think it's the headline for all of those interviewers as well is about, just, can I see this person at this school? Did it? You might have it as um, formal kind of typologies of what a school is looking for. Usually, I think it's a bit more holistic. It's like, yeah, I think they'd fit because of this, different to why this person would fit. We do it from combined experience. People like me
Mhm.
have been around a long time. We don't rely on my experience for that. The most important thing is in the decision-making group, the admissions committee, that there's a lot of diverse opinions as well, so that not everybody's going to sit and think like me and say, oh, I think this person's great because it might be conflicting views, or somebody might be advocating for a different candidate, so that we get the best and most balanced committee. So our fit is dependent on who's making the decisions as well. Finally, I'd say that our community is made by the people, right? So to do that, you've got to pick the right people. That's why it's so important for us to do that. And all of these admissions professionals in front of you take our job so seriously. Um, but on the other side, the part of it we love is meeting everybody and thinking, yeah, I'm really excited for you joining the class. So a school's personality and identity is made up by the diversity of the community, just made up by people and individuals. So all we're doing really is looking to see who seems to belong based on
Mhm.
sort of potential with what we do and how we like to think of ourselves as a school.
And I think, David, you're making a good case for candidates to, as you say, talk with current students, talk with alumni, get to know the culture and this, because I think invariably that stuff kind of then finds its way into the candidate's presentation of themselves and their ability to talk about why they want to be there, right? So,
Totally. I
yeah,
think, research is, evidence of research is evidence that you've thought about whether you're a good match for this school.
yeah.
And that's something that's vital for us.
Yeah, and I will say one of the great things about this group today is that when I think of all five of your programs, I think of a really great, distinct culture and community, and yeah, just very supportive kind of environment. So it wasn't on purpose that we put the five of you together, but it's working out really nicely. All right, Andrea, we have one more question, and then we'll get into our quick lightning round with some fun questions. But Andrea, this one is it's kind of a specific one, but I thought it would be really good to shed light on, especially as we talk a lot today. We're talking about testing and academics and things. And so, some candidates come into the process maybe with some academic deficiencies, whether that's a low GPA or they didn't perform as well on a test as they wanted, or maybe they just have had limited exposure to quantitative coursework as an undergraduate. Is there anything that you recommend? Like, is it a good idea to sort of bolster what we would call at ClearBit, sometimes call building like an alternative transcript, or taking classes or things to kind of get ready for business school, but also to show kind of readiness in the application process. So, is there anything that you typically speak to on this?
Yeah, I saw this question. I was like, oh, that's a tough one. And then I'm I'm responding to it. I think because it is truly unique to each applicant, how you address this question. And so I think the two approaches I took is one, again, as you're completing your application, you want to submit the most competitive application possible. And so there may be deficiencies or weaknesses in certain criteria of your application. And if you see those gaps or weaknesses, you need to fill them out. Create that well-rounded picture of you as an applicant for your admissions officer. So there may be quantitative courses that you want to be thinking about, or certifications that start painting that picture to your short-term career goals. And maybe there would be a gap in the curriculum for you to be able to achieve that within the MBA. So I think that's one thing to be thinking about when you're getting ready to submit that application. The other thing is thinking about the other scenarios, which programs you're applying to. If you're applying as a test optional applicant or you're applying for one of those waivers, the program may specifically spell out which classes or courses you should be considering along with that application or a requirement within that waiver process. So do a lot of research, understand what that program's expectations is of applicants, and then assess your own application and understand, are there deficiencies? Are there gaps? What are certain things that you can do? A great way to do that is attend virtual events and in-person events with the programs that you are interested in. You'll glean a lot of information from that. We do not want to create barriers or not be transparent. Everything of our programs is posted onto our website. So do your research and understand what the programs are looking for, and then how you can submit the most competitive application possible. So I don't want to specifically call out any one boot camp or any
Sure.
one like quantitative course. There are many, and so it really will be unique to you as an applicant if you proceed with anything in addition to the application criteria.
Okay. Yeah, that's really helpful. And I do think, also this can kind of be bucketed a little bit because there's some people who might want to do this not necessarily as part of the application, but as part of the preparation to arrive at business school, like ready to hit the ground running. Um, I was an art history major, and when I arrived at business school, it was definitely good. I had actually taken like a stats class over the summer and stuff. So there are things that can be helpful just to get ready for business school, but then there also can be things that would help your application. And I agree, there are many things out there. If you can Google this and find many
Mhm.
courses and things like that. But I appreciate you shedding light on that. We have one last thing that we're going to do with our panelists, and then we're going to break out into individual Zooms. So if you have questions for Ross, Tuck, Fuqua, LBS, or INSEAD, stay around and you can jump into their breakouts. But what we'll do now is we have these kind of quick lightning rounds. So we'll just go through, and I guess we'll start with you, Andrea. We'll go backwards this time through the alphabet. So Andrea, describe your admissions team in 3 words.
Okay, aside from awesome, I stuck all alliterative. So I said supportive, strategic, and student-centered.
Okay, excellent. All right, let's go to you, David.
I'm going to say committed, open-minded advocates. I'm cheating with open-minded, hyphenated, right?
It's all right. We'll take it. Segen, how about you?
Diverse, dynamic, and student focused.
Okay,
Similar to
excellent.
Andrea.
I recognize this gets harder as we go, but Morgan will turn to you next. What about you?
I would say innovative, kind, and diverse.
Okay. And I guess you know that they're diverse because you've read 25 random things about each of them, right, when they join the team.
Oh, we are
All
all
right.
very different.
All right. And Megan, how about you? How about Tuck, the admissions team at Tuck?
Yeah, I'm gonna go just to our admissions criteria: smart, aware, accomplished, and encouraging. I think those words are actually a reflection of our community, our staff, our faculty, our students. So I would apply those to our team as well.
Oh, cool. All right. Excellent. Let's stay with you, Megan, and we get into our second lightning round question. And this one is, I'm totally blanking on what it is. Let's see. Here we go. So, okay. Yeah, this is a good one. Naming the wrong school in an essay is a classic cringy mistake that candidates can make. What's another thing you would say not to do if you can avoid it?
Yeah, I would say don't leave points on the table. And what I mean by that is don't leave sections of the application blank. For example, sometimes we see folks skip over employment information because they think it's covered in the resume. But that section gives me context on how much you work, the scale of your organization, the scope of your role. So we're really intentional with the questions we ask. So do be sure to fill out that application in its entirety.
I love that you're mentioning that because I think it's kind of people say, well, of course I'm going to fill out the form, but when I was reading files at a business school that I work for, it's amazing. Sometimes people cut corners and like sort of see resume, or something. It's like, whoa, fill out the form. If you're being asked to fill out the form, you're going to commit 2 years of your life or a year of your life in the case of INSEAD to go into this business school, like do the work. All right. How about let's go. So we're going now to Morgan at Fuqua. What would you say on this one?
I would say don't use Chat GPT to write your essays.
Okay, good advice. Sagan, how about you?
Well, to build on what Megan said, don't leave us guessing. So if there are any gaps in your profile, let us know. We don't know what you've been doing in the 2 years you took off. Were you just Netflixing, traveling around? Let us know what you were doing.
Okay. Yeah, excellent. Uh, David, how about you? Something people should avoid.
Don't underestimate the importance of research on the school and evidencing that research. We're looking for you to show us that you're interested in us and you've spoken to our people.
Okay. Andrea?
I agree wholeheartedly with the ChatGPT. My original one was like, don't be vague. And I think AI has created a lot of vagueness in the essay. So I'm going to now go with resume. You are applying to business school. Your resume is important. So spend some time working on that. Focus on impact, like context, action, results is a great way to focus your bullets. And many of our programs want a one-page resume that is by design. So try and hold to that one page. And so that would be my advice.
Yeah, and I'm hearing, I mean, a couple of you now talked about don't be vague and stuff, and I think that's important. The last thing you want to do when you're reading an application is have to play detective and figure out, well, wait, where were they at this for this year, or what were they doing here? So keep that in mind. We have one more question. Andrea, I'll stay with you. Something that you're looking forward to that's going to happen at University of Michigan, Ross, in the future.
Well, commencements was last week, so that's hard to beat in terms of a near future. But we have an admitted students event coming up on Friday, and the following Friday, a prospective student event. And selfishly, I'm going to be in the office on Wednesday, and that's our farmers market. And it is spring in Michigan, so I'm hoping to pick up some flowers.
Oh, excellent. All right. So, Morgan, let's turn to you. Something that you're looking forward to.
I'm really looking forward to. I actually help to manage a lot of our off-campus events, and this is an exciting, busy time of year, but I'm excited to get back on the road and travel. It's a great way for us to meet prospective students like those joining us here, and then also to reconnect with alumni. I always love when I send them emails like, "Hey, can you join me for this event?" And I look back at like these are people that I helped along the way, and now seeing where they're working. So that's something I'm looking forward to.
Excellent. Sagan, how about you? Anything happening at INSEAD, one of INSEAD's campuses that you're
One of
excited about?
INSEAD's campuses, that's a good one. We're actually celebrating our 25th anniversary of our Asia campus. So that's quite exciting. We're looking forward to some celebrations.
Oh, nice. Excellent. David, anything happening at LBS that you're looking forward to?
Yeah, I'll stay on the celebratory theme. We've got the 60 years of LBS alumni reunion coming up in an iconic location in London by the Thames. I'm looking forward to that. There's going to be sessions by different faculty, loads of them on AI and leadership. And I just did an AI leadership course on campus last week, which was amazing, totally invigorating. So I'm looking forward to that, and also my favorite ex-dean is giving a talk on judgment and using judgment at work. So I'm looking forward to seeing faculty in action and meeting old friends and alumni.
Oh, cool. All right. And I know I went in a completely random pattern here, but Megan, will go to you now at Tuck. What are you looking forward to happening up in Hanover?
So we just celebrated our 125th anniversary at Tux. That was a very exciting happening. But looking ahead, July 11th is our summer visit day. Great opportunity to have sort of a full day experience with us at Tuck. Beautiful time of year to be in the Upper Valley. So if you can join, it's a great day to bookmark.
Okay. So again, I really appreciate you guys with these on the kind of on the spot stuff, lightning round, but appreciate you humoring us. We love these questions. What we're going to do now is send our panelists backstage and get them into their breakouts. So if you're here, just hang on a second while we give our panelists a few minutes. But I do want to sincerely thank Sagan, David, Megan, Morgan, and Andrea for your time today. Really appreciate you guys. Such great responses to these questions. So we'll send you backstage and get you ready for your breakouts. And the rest of the audience, just stay with me for 1 minute. We want to let our panelists get a glass of water or whatever they might want to do in the next minute to get ready to take your questions. So I'll let them pop backstage. They can do that. There's a little button at the bottom right if you're looking, but thanks everybody. All right, so appreciate everyone making time to join us today. I did want to just share a couple of quick things while we give our panelists a moment here. The first is that we're back tomorrow doing one of these, and tomorrow the schools joining us are Cornell, NYU, Harvard, Emory, and Carnegie Mellon Tepper. So come back same time tomorrow. And then there are a couple more of these events on the 20th and 21st of May. You can see all the details on our website. But again, a whole bunch of great schools joining us over the rest of the course of this month. The other thing I'll say is that next Wednesday, we're going to be in Boston. So if you happen to be in the Boston area or want to come to Boston, we're doing an in-person fair in Boston with about 25 schools. It should be a lot of fun. You can, again, find information about this at clearadmit.com. And obviously, we have a lot of amazing stuff on our website. You can see it all here kind of on screen. I presume some of you have been to the website, but just want to remind you, there's a ton of like free resources as you navigate the admissions process. The newest, coolest thing, which I don't even think is on the slide here, is we built a little AI bot that read everything that ClearAdmit has ever written, all the videos we've ever made, all the stuff that everyone on my team and myself have said in these types of events. And we kind of put it all into a large language model and created our own GPT. So on our website, you'll see there's a little bot called Ask Clear Admit. It's a lot of fun to play with. I've had a lot of fun using it. Candidates have, thousands of candidates have been using this thing, and it's really accurate. It's unlike ChatGPT because it's based only on our advice, which we think is terrific. So in any event, I think that's probably enough from me. Hope to see many of you tomorrow and later in the month, or maybe even in person in Boston if you happen to be in the area. But in the meantime, we want to let you guys head off into the breakouts. Our panelists are going to stick around for probably 20, 30 minutes or so. So please enjoy your time with them. They're your best resource on questions about their programs. So I'm going to send you off to do that. But I do want to sincerely thank each of you for joining us today from all across the world, all these different time zones. It's always a pleasure hosting these and seeing everyone join us. So hopefully I'll see many of you tomorrow.